For the U.S. Supreme Court to agree to hear a case, at least 4 justices must vote to take it up. So not a majority, although it can be. 4 out of 9 is the bare minimum. It's the magic number. And now, with the news that the Supreme Court has decided to hear Donald Trump's claim that he is somehow immune from criminal prosecution, it begs the question, which of these 9 justices decided to take up this case? And why did it take the court so very long to do so? Now, on December 11th, 2023, special counsel Jack Smith asked the Supreme Court to quickly weigh in on Trump's presidential immunity appeal and to do so early, which the court rejected. And now, by the time we get to April 22nd, which is when the court plans to hear oral arguments in this immunity case, it will have been 133 days since the court was first asked to hear the appeal. So the pace is curious. Around 50 days when it appears to help Donald Trump, and over 130 days when it doesn't. Joining me now is Mark Joseph Stern, senior writer for Slate, covering the courts and the law, and Elie Mystal, justice correspondent for The Nation. Elie, first, let's talk about the optics of this order. It's unsigned. There are no dissents. I'm asking you to answer maybe the unanswerable, but do you think it's possible that this was a unanimous decision, that the liberal justices on the court co-signed taking this case up?
I highly doubt it. I mean, as you said, you only need 4 votes to take the case at all. Most likely it was the 4 horsemen, right? It was Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, who decided to hear this case. I'm a little bit more interested about the 5th vote, because remember, there was an option for the Supreme Court to take the case, but not grant the stay, but allow justice to keep forward. And they must have had a 5th vote to even gum up that process. So that most likely came from either Roberts or Barrett or both. I doubt very highly that the liberals were in on it. But what I will say is that we've talked about, Dahlia was talking about Colorado earlier, right? The liberals apparently are going to allow Trump back on the ballot, and they got nothing for that. They traded away that for nothing, because the deal potentially of letting Trump be on the ballot but denying his immunity request, that obviously didn't happen.
Yeah, that seems to be somewhat up in smoke. Mark, I have to go back into the Wayback Machine, or the medium back machine, to revisit a conversation we had. I don't remember when it was. 2 weeks ago. Wow. 2 weeks ago. Seven years ago in TV anchor time. You suggested that the Supreme Court had already decided to take up the immunity case. You suggested that they had sort of maybe cleared their April calendar to take up a high stakes case. Can you talk a little bit more about what feels like a very prescient piece of analysis?
Yes, I'm saddened to learn that my educated guess was correct there. But what I noticed was that in December, shortly after Jack Smith first asked the Supreme Court to take up this case on an expedited schedule, the court was granting new cases, but not putting them on the April calendar. One case in particular, a filing revealed that the court had secretly told the parties, we're holding this over until October, so you don't need to rush. In January, another major case, a death penalty case, the court rather bizarrely hung on to it and then held it over till next term. That was a strange pattern to me. I've covered the court for a long time. You usually don't see that. The justices like to clear their plates with these cases by filling up the calendar right until the end of April. And so that was why when we spoke a few weeks ago, or maybe a few years ago in anchor time, it seemed to me there was a real chance that what the justices were thinking was, look, we're going to have at least one more blockbuster emergency case. It will probably be the immunity case, and so we're going to hold open space for it later in the term. Again, just my guess, but I fear that in light of today's news, it is quite plausible.
Wait, if they did that, Elie, that is, first of all, I'm reminded of the Dobbs decision, where they decided they were going to take up the case but didn't actually put it on the docket for several months because of political realities, right? Could this court have done that again? And what does that suggest to you about, they could have taken this up in January when special counsel Jack Smith said, hey, can you hear this on an expedited basis, but chose not to. Then the appeals court gives a bulletproof ruling, as Dahlia says, and they still decide to take it up.
What it says is that they are corrupted political actors who act in bad faith. The reason why people like Mark and people like Dahlia seem to have a crystal ball is because they're real. because they're realists and they understand the court for what it is. And at some point, people in the media, people at home, and people sitting in the White House have to stop pretending that the Supreme Court is some kind of benign, trying to do its best institution and start to realize that there are 6 Republicans, not conservatives, Republicans on the Supreme Court who view it as their job to help the Republican Party. And until we do something about that, until we take away that power, until we draw the line on them there, they will continue to do this. They will help Trump. They will take away abortion rights. They will end affirmative action. They will liberalize gun rights. They will do all of it until we stop them. And somebody needs to start listening in the higher echelons of the Democratic Party, because we will keep losing every day we allow these 6 Republicans in robes to rule over all of us.
Mark, I so appreciate Ellie's passion and disdain for this court. It is an incontrovertible fact that when the 14th Amendment case rolled around, they were able to move that thing through real quickly, even though the stakes are as high, if not considerably higher in this case. And I wonder if there is any explanation that you could even fathom other than, craven political calculation.
So, look, I think there's a possibility that over the last 2 weeks, the liberal justices were trying to come to a compromise with a handful of conservatives. I think Ellie is right. Probably Roberts and Barrett were seen as the most gettable here to issue a summary affirmance, perhaps, of the D.C. Circuit's bulletproof decision, or to simply deny a stay. And, the court could have denied a stay, allowed the trial to move forward in the preliminary stages, and also heard arguments and rendered a decision to affirm that the trial could move forward in the summer. The court had other options, and I really do think that the justices on the left were struggling to find something, salvage something out of this over the last few weeks that would make it anything less than a disaster. But frankly, it appears that they have failed, and I cannot come up with any other justification for what the court has done here. Delaying over and over again, allowing Trump to run out the clock, but only in cases that he wants the court to move slowly on. As you've said, when he's bumped off the ballot, he gets to the court the next month. When he raises a bogus immunity claim, he gets to push his trial back so many months that it probably won't happen before the election. That is a disturbing pattern. I have to say, I am cynical about this court. Even I am shocked by what happened today. Last term, there were some decisions that suggested maybe a few of the justices in the middle would let us have some democracy, would let us have voting rights and make our own decisions and vote in a free and fair election and hold people accountable for subverting that election. And now I just don't think that's true. I have to agree with Ellie's extreme cynicism. I feel like this court is in the tank for Donald Trump.
Well, Ellie, in the break leading into the segment, you rightly point out the vested interest that some of these conservatives have in a re-election of Trump as it pertains to their retirement.
Clarence Thomas doesn't want to die on that court, and he's getting old, and he's never going to retire during a Democratic president. So Clarence Thomas, one of the reasons why he's not recusing himself is that Clarence Thomas needs Trump to win again so Clarence Thomas can retire. And most likely, Sam Alito needs Trump to win again so Alito can retire instead of having to die on the bench. And so that's at least 2 of the 9 who have a vested professional interest in seeing continued Republican hegemony over this country. And that's not the first time this has happened. As we all know, Sandra Day O'Connor wanted George Bush to be president and thus appointed him president in Bush v. Gore because she wanted to retire under a Republican president. This is how Republicans roll.
Wow. On that note, we are going to have to leave it there. The conversation is by no means over. Please come back, Mark Joseph Stern and Elie Mystal. Thanks so much for your time and your passions tonight.